So, people, this is a discussion about blood cells and the cancers of about blood cells. So, before everything, we need to learn about the blood cells details, where they come from, and how do they differentiate. And after that, we'll discuss about the cancers. So, this is the most important thing. Every blood cell, they originate from multipotent stem cells. Then the stem cell divides into two types of progenitors. One is myeloid progenitor, one is lymphoid progenitor. Then the lymphoid progenitor that produces lymphoblast. Then from lymphoblast, three types of lymphocytes are produced: T cell, B cell, and NK cell. Right. So from lymphoblast, then three types of lymphocytes. Then after that, from myeloid, we just can't say that from myeloblast, then from myeloblast everything. No, that's not, that doesn't happen here. So from myeloid, four types of blast, before blast, two types of colony forming units are formed. One is CFU GM, then another one is CFU ME. GM, from here two types of blasts are produced. One is myeloblast, second is monoblast. Myeloblast refers to the from myeloblast, myelocytes are formed. These are the granulocytes. From myeloblast, this refers to the granulocytes. And from monoblast, monocytes, macrophages. Then from other colony forming unit, megakaryoblast and erythroblast. Right, so they form megakaryocyte and erythrocyte. So, and this classification, it will come handy in the next cancer discussion. So remember this: from lymphoid, lymphoblast, three lymphocytes. From myeloid, four types of blasts. And then from the blast, sites. Right, from lymphoid, lymphocyte. From myeloid, we can't say myeloblast. From myeloid, four types of blasts, not only myeloblast. Right. So there are various types of cancer. So before that, we are going to discuss about what is cancer, what is acute, and what is chronic. So we know any type of cell cancer means that's anaplastic cancer cell, and that's an anaplastic cell. That means it doesn't differentiate properly. Right, so it has no proper maturity. Right, so in case of any kind of acute or chronic thing, what is acute thing? Acute means that happens in a very short time period, and chronic means it takes a longer time. So then there is different types of cancer. We'll first discuss about leukemia. So what is leukemia? Leukemia is the cancer in the blood vessel, or cancer of blood cells. Cancer in blood, we can say. So the blood cancer, it's leukemia. So leukemia is two types. One is acute and the second one is chronic. Right. So the acute means, it happens in a very short period of time. The chronic means it takes a longer time. So when the cells, the blood cells, so we are in now leukemia. In case of leukemia, what happens? The number of blood cells increases in number. But so there are two types, acute and chronic. What happens from a bone marrow? Every types of cell, they get matured. They take time to mature. Then they come to the peripheral blood vessels. If it's a bone marrow, then they come from bone marrow to blood vessel. Right? Then circulate here in the blood. So in case of acute, there is a very less amount of time. But in chronic, they get much more time. So that's why in case of acute, number of blasts are more than 20%. In case of chronic, there is less than 20% blasts. So So during the process of maturation, blasts from sites, like lymphoblast from lymphocyte, myeloblast from myelocyte, monoblast from monocyte. That's how they form. They get mature. In case of acute, when the number of cells increase through the cancer, but the number of blasts are more in bone marrow, they don't get much time in case of acute. That's why the bone marrow pushes them to the peripheral blood. That's why we find more blasts. In case of chronic, it's a slow process. That's why they get matured, and after that they come to the peripheral blood. In case of acute, there is acute lymphoblastic, acute myeloid. We don't listen. This is the most important thing. We don't call it acute myeloblastic because acute lymphoblastic here, then lymphoblast, it's the immature form. But in case of, if we'll call it acute myeloblastic, it will only suggest to this part only. Myeloid does not form only myeloblast. They form other three blasts also. There are also other three blasts. That's why we call it acute myeloid. In case of chronic, we call it chronic lymphocytic. Look at here. And for the lymphoid progenitor, lymphoblast will form lymphocytes. But in case of chronic myeloid, we don't call it chronic myelocyte because myelocyte will refer to only this part. That's why we call it chronic myeloid. So acute myeloid, all these blasts, then acute, and then chronic myeloid, all these sites, right? Acute lymphoblastic, then chronic lymphocytic. In case of acute, there is blast. In case of chronic, there is site. But in case of myeloid progenitor, we don't call it myeloblast or myelocyte because it will restrict to only the granulocyte part, right? Now after that, there is lymphoma. Lymphoma is the cancer in the lymph node. Lymph node means there are B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. So the in case of lymphoma, their number increases. Then diseases, based on the type of disease, there are B lymphomas, there are T lymphomas, various types of lymphomas. But before that, we divide them into Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Right, the classification, we'll see it later, but these are the most important basics. Then there is another, you can say cancer. We call it chronic myeloproliferative disorder. Right. So what is chronic myeloproliferative disorder? So chronic means there are more mature forms, myeloproliferative from the myeloid progenitor. But this one's different from leukemia because in leukemia you see there is ALL, AML, whatever. In case of these diseases, these won't produce only single type of single lineage. I mean, you can't say from myeloid only RBC will be formed, or lymphoblast only T lymphocyte, or something like that. They will form. That's not. That doesn't happen here, right? Various types of cells are found in leukemia. If the number of cells increases, then so in ALL or AML, CML, there is no particular single lineage cells are formed, right? But in case of chronic myeloproliferative disorder, you see in chronic myeloproliferative disorder, only single lineage cancer cells are formed, right? So that's why when the RBC increases, we call it polycythemia vera. The WBC increases, we call it chronic myeloid leukemia. Yes, I mean CML is a leukemia, but it undergoes this chronic myeloproliferative disorder. I mean, you can say it's a chronic myeloproliferative, also it's a leukemia. The third one is increasing number of platelets, essential thrombocythemia. Then there is primary myelofibrosis. It's a bit different, but look at the heading here. Chronic myeloproliferative disease. Then there is another myelodysplastic syndrome. All above the three cancers, I mean leukemia, lymphoma, and this one, right? So these are the cells which are anaplastic. In cancer cells, the cells are anaplastic, but in case of MDS, it's a myelodysplastic syndrome. Dysplasia comes before anaplasia, so it's a pre-cancer stage. It suggests, if you see, there are various characteristics of blood cells in the peripheral smear. So from that you can recognize this is a dysplastic cell. These are in the pre-cancer stage. They can also move to cancer stages like AML because it's a myeloid progenitor, so they move to AML. But they can move to CML, but CML is very rare. So that's why it's myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS.